All right. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you all for joining us in another amazing journey of Caribbean Diaspora Vibes. Um, Louie, I'm gonna let you, we know we can't see you tonight, but I'm gonna let you do your station ID and welcome, and I'm gonna be sharing our pages, okay?
Right, excellent, excellent. We want to welcome each and everyone this evening to Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network. We are live this evening on CRRFM and we're also live on Facebook. And this is the Caribbean Diaspora Vibes right here. We meet every Tuesday from 7 until 8. And we want to welcome you to a very special event. We celebrate ladies and their accomplishments and all the good things that we can't do as men without them. So welcome all ladies this evening.
Thank you, Louis.
All right. So we're actually going to be streaming on Caribbean American Diaspora on Facebook, and we're also streaming on Caribbean Rhythm Radio Network and on Caribbean Diaspora Vibes. There's a couple pages that we're actually sending it to from my page, also Women of Culture, of course. Yes. So we should be streaming on all those four um pages. So welcome everyone. Welcome. My name is Donna Morgan, and I am the president of Caribbean American Diaspora. I'm also the president of Women of Culture Incorporated, where we support women, children, and families affected by incarceration, trauma, and poverty. I'm a real estate broker and a spiritual mindset coach. We want to welcome you all to, and we've had such an amazing month of such amazing women.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And we have such an array tonight. And I see Dr. Arlene is just joining us.
Welcome, Dr. Arlene.
So she's also had a very busy, there you are, a very busy schedule. Tonight we have four amazing women, and I'm gonna just say their names, and then they're going to just wave their hand so you can see, and then we're gonna go in, and we want to get like 10 minutes for each woman to kind of tell us a little bit about who she is, background, etc., and her journey. Okay, so first we want to just introduce Dr. Topaz Sampson-Mills, medical doctor, and a psychiatrist. In fact, I'm gonna let them tell you because some of the, half of the titles could not hold on the flyer. I'm just gonna let you just gonna let you know, Lois. We could not put all of the accomplishments. I had to shorten it. So we'll let them introduce. We want to just let you know that as we like to do on Caribbean Diaspora Vibes, Dr. Topaz is from Guyana.
Wow.
Representing. We got a mix up here tonight. I love it. Then we have Francisca Plummer representing St. Lucia.
All right, big up.
And she's in St. Lucia right now. So she's getting some really nice weather and good food. And then we have Kathe Robinson representing Dominica, and of course here in the US. And then we have Dr. Letitia Brown. James, can't forget the James. That's our USBI posse.
Awesome.
Amazing. So, and of course, welcome, Dr. Arlene. How are you doing?
I'm doing fabulous.
And both of us are repping
in this midst of mighty women.
I know, right?
I know it.
Big up, big up, big up,
Big
Dr.
up, big up, big up.
We are the two, well, me and you, Dr. Arlene, the two Jamaican women holding it down, and of course, Louis. So we are loving the fact of, just having this plethora, this mix of Caribbean diaspora excellence, right? So let's go ahead and get started with Dr. Topaz.
All right.
So we'll try to do up to 10 minutes. Tell us a
Okay.
little bit who you are, how your journey, how'd you even get here?
Lovely, lovely. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm so ecstatic to be with you all. I'm Dr. Topaz Sampson-Mills. I'm a double board certified forensic and adult psychiatrist. Forensic psychiatry being the intersection of mental health with the law. I'm from Guyana, as was mentioned, born in New Amsterdam, and I came to the States when I was 2 years old with my mom. So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a product of public school. I completed my college degree at Spelman College, obtained my Bachelor of Science. After Spelman, I completed medical school at Wright State Boonshoff School of Medicine in Dayton, Ohio. Thereafter, I did my psychiatry residency at Baylor College of Medicine here in Houston, Texas. After completing residency, I did an additional year of training in forensic psychiatry at SUNY Upstate Medical University in Syracuse, New York. While there in my fellowship, I served as an expert witness for several cases in New York State. Most recently, I had the pleasure of being assistant professor of psychiatry at Baylor College of Medicine and staff psychiatrist at the Menninger Clinic. In the past year, I've enjoyed serving as a medical expert on several local news television programs, and that's been a pleasure of mine. Right now, I'm transitioning from my role and looking forward to new opportunities in my future career. But before I end my introduction, I want to share with you all that I became a doctor because I want to serve the underserved and uplift my community. So in this moment, being here with you all, I'm living my dream and I'm honored to be with my Caribbean community. Yes, thank you so much. Should I share tips now, or we're gonna do our intros first?
Yes. Thank you so much. And I think we have who did we have next to go? Francesca, let's go with you. Let's just jump over to St. Lucia.
Yes, greetings from warm and sunny. Well, it's dark now, but greetings from St. Lucia. Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure. I'm Francisca. As you know, I'm in the lovely St. Lucia, the most beautiful island, I think.
Of course.
I'm going to start a war. That's okay. And I'm a psychotherapist and counselor. I practice clinically in St. Lucia. I see people from a vast number of backgrounds in different contexts. A lot of my clients are employees. So I do a lot of EAP work. I work with the medical community quite closely, to helping people who have medical conditions to manage, cope better. I work with college students as well. So there's a vast kind of array of things I do. And it really has been a passion of mine. I heard Dr. Topaz talking about, the passion for doing that and giving back. And for me, one of my earliest memories is remembering wanting people to not go through difficult things alone. And that has always been a passion, a drive of mine. I'm really passionate about what I do. I really enjoy giving back and being part of the Caribbean mental health community. So a little bit about my training. I did my bachelor's in psychology in the UK, and I followed that up with also my master's in psychotherapy and counseling also in the UK. And subsequent to that, I also did some advanced diploma in advanced counseling. So I'm licensed in St. Lucia. I'm accredited by the UK British Association of Psychotherapy and Counseling. So yeah, I've been working at this for 22 years now.
Wow.
Yes. Lots of clinical experience there. I've worked with governments in terms of developing mental health programming, policies, implementing programs across St. Lucia and other islands as well. So yeah, a little bit about me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I see that you did not stay in the UK, right?
Don't
Too
like the
cold.
weather. The Caribbean is in me, okay? So
Of
yes, I
course.
wanted to be in the warmth of the Caribbean, and I also wanted to give back. I've also been a scholar in for well, all of my degrees, and one of it is, giving back, coming back and contributing to mental health. And so that definitely has been a pleasure to work in mental health reform in St. Lucia and to really give back on a big scale.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Good job. Good job.
We're gonna go to Miss Kathe Robinson. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again, Donna. It's always a pleasure. My journey started not in mental health, not intending to want to do health, but it started from nasty relationship where I
That'll do it.
yeah, that would definitely do it when you hit rock bottom and had to really reflect on where I was going, a terrible divorce and everything else. And I had to pick myself up because, we're living for our kids. And to be present, I had to be present for myself and I had to be there for myself. And 15 years before, there was a seed planted in me with meditation and everything else. I started practicing, putting myself up and live through certain mental health diagnosis and have a very supporting family. And then I started to fall in love with people. I wasn't always a people person. But when you get into the mindful and awareness space, you tend to develop empathy and more compassion. By developing compassion for yourself, you learn to appreciate and being compassionate towards others. And having two daughters, I am always being involved with the younger people. And seeing the lack of opportunities and mindfulness and health things that are not as focused on young people, I tended to get myself more in the youth space because even from young, I was always involved in youth, in church, being the president of youth groups, creating youth groups. So I presently, right now, I have found myself as a youth advocate, yoga and SEL, social and emotional learning facilitator certified, and also a life coach. And presently, I went back to school and also being focused on the criminal justice system that is not very warming to the juveniles. I hate to hear juveniles, but the young people and the youth. I find myself attracted to that and merging being a youth advocate for youth in the criminal justice space as well as wellness and well-being space. So I went back to school and studied criminal justice. So have a bachelor's in criminal justice focusing on social justice and social welfare. And you know, sitting in the midst of such powerhouses, powerful women as you are, when you just want to touch your cloak. So I am honored to be in your presence. And doing that now, I am I've always been in love with psychotherapy. So I got an advanced degree in child and adolescent psychotherapy and well-being and a professional master's in well-being, emotional well-being therapy and still not satisfied. But to practice in the States, to be licensed. So I want to really be licensed and have my licensure. And I am pursuing a master's in clinical mental health and focusing on art therapy. So in the meantime, what I'm doing, I host a radio talk show which focuses on advocating and embracing the youth voices. So I only basically focus on youth, have youth as guests, but everything surrounding the youth in terms of bringing their voices to the fore to bridge that gap between the generational gap, help making them be our mentors as opposed instead of them us being their mentors, because there's so much for us to learn from them, how they want us to deal with them, to help to have a more harmonious society, because our youth and our young children are very, very critical, we'll all agree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's called the Youth Effect, where I do this program on 8:30 every Monday nights. And so I also do, as I say, life coaching, but I haven't forgotten my first passion, which is a quality manager. So I'm a certified quality manager as well, and a certified risk assessment manager for food safety. So I also do business development plans, business strategy, and things like that as well. But my passion also exists in the youth space, mindfulness space, wellness.
Right.
And so that's where I'm at, in the
I
crossroads, doing
love
a
it.
second career, not really starting from scratch, but going forth now, loving people and too passionate about people and learning from relationships and teaching my daughters about last night. Our thing was about basically almost the same thing, but for you focus. How do you feel about this charged climate and how to go on and understanding how to develop boundaries with relationships and keeping ourselves sane, especially for the young people. So that's where I'm at in my journey, and it's been a beautiful journey. I'm in a good space and a good
Yes.
place. And I really feel honored to be sitting among you women. I mean, three doctors. I wanted to do forensic psychology, doc, but I had to change my mind and just stay with the clinical mental health. But I wanted to do forensic clinical, get to be an FFMC, but that's fine. I'll stay there. I will definitely call on you guys if I need any help, because that's the network, right? So thank you
Yes.
again for having me, Donna. And I look forward to this tonight's
Yes,
episode.
thank you. This is definitely collaboration, networking, I mean, reaching across borders. So we've been doing this since 2020 with Lewis. When COVID kicked off, and we haven't stopped, and we've just met the most amazing group of men, women, professionals, and especially our Caribbean diaspora professionals. We get to highlight them, because I don't even know if anyone else is doing this where they're focusing primarily on the Caribbean diaspora professionals. So we definitely give thanks for that. Let's see, we are going to jump on and go to Miss Dr. Excuse me, Dr. Letitia.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I want to apologize in advance. I'm recovering from a respiratory illness, so my voice is not the best, but I'm hanging in there. But my name is Dr. Letitia Brown James. It's so wonderful to see everyone. Thank you, Donna, for the invitation. And
Welcome, Doctor.
thank you. Nice to see you, Lewis. I was born and raised in St. Thomas, USVI, and left St. Thomas at 18 after graduation and moved to Florida, where I attended Bethune-Cookman College, now Bethune-Cookman University, Hail Wildcats, in Daytona Beach, Florida, HBCU. And I majored in psychology. After that, I worked at Boys Town of Central Florida, working with youth who were in the foster care system due to abuse and neglect and, other unfortunate circumstances. And did that for about 2 years before I went on to UCF, Go Knights, and got my master's in mental health counseling with certificates in play therapy and marriage and family therapy. I continued to work at Boys Town on a part-time basis while I was doing that, and then eventually graduated and became a licensed mental health counselor. So I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Florida, 2 times board certified counselor, nationally certified. And now I own my own practice in Orlando, but we see people throughout Florida. It's a group practice, so I have people working at the practice also. And we see the whole gamut, of outpatient mental health, depression, anxiety, family problems, children with behavior issues, just the whole gamut of issues and life circumstances, grief and loss that people may experience.
Right.
And, you know, one of the things that I discovered, because I've owned my practice for about 7 years now, but one of the things that we kept getting calls about was individuals wanting mental health services from the Caribbean and everywhere, and they just couldn't afford it, you know, whether they had insurance and they had a high deductible that they couldn't afford, or even if they didn't have a high deductible, but they couldn't afford the copays or whatever the financial barriers are or were, or, you know, they don't have insurance at all, or they're undocumented, whatever, just the whole gamut of reasons. And so that prompted me, oh my gosh, it's 2 years now, to start LBJ Behavioral Services, which is my nonprofit that funds, you know, the same services that we do at Victorious Living for individuals who are uninsured or underinsured. So they can't afford the services, but they need the same quality care. Of course, there are other clinics and places in the community that offer it, but unfortunately, sometimes we hear a lot of bad stories, and particularly surrounding like culture and not understanding the cultural nuances that our people may experience. You know, I've been very fortunate to have most of the clinicians that work at my practice they are of Caribbean descent, and the few that aren't, you know, they're very culturally informed. So that's what we do. In addition to that, I'm an associate professor at Adler Graduate School, so I teach mental health courses, you know, for individuals who are working on their masters in mental health counseling, marriage and family therapy, co-occurring disorders, which is basically people who have mental health concerns or conditions, as well as substance use concerns, and expressive arts therapy. I'm also the coordinator there of the marriage and family therapy program. So very, very busy, but really love to help people and to help train other people, because we can only do so much. So that's one of the reasons I went into this work, to help train more great counselors who are ethical and culturally informed and just willing to meet people where they are and help them through whatever their life circumstances may be, and to further destigmatize mental health, because mental health is very much still destigmatized. We're getting better, but there's still a lot of stigma, particularly in different cultures, but specifically our people, Caribbean people. I'm just saying, we're still a little bit, hesitant to pursue mental health. And even sometimes I have young adults that are coming in for services, and they don't want the family to know because they're afraid of the judgment, or the things that they may experience, or the comments that will be made, because there's such stigma. And I love to tell people, taking care of your mental health is no different than taking care of your physical health, your spiritual health, body, mind, spirit connection. It all has to be in sync. If one of them is out of sync, it'll throw the other ones out, because they all work together. And so it's really important to attend to our mental health. And I just think it helps, to see someone who looks like you, or who you perceive to understand your lived experiences, helps to destigmatize it, and will make our people more inclined to come in and talk about the things that they need to talk about. And I know in the Caribbean, one of the things that we're concerned about, or that happens, is people talking your business, so we have to go through that whole process of, this is not a talking your business type of situation. We are held to very strict, confidential legal standards. And even if I see you out in the community, I will never approach you. If you decide to approach me and say something, that's fine. But to protect your confidentiality, I'm not being funny. I'm just protecting you by not approaching you and putting you in a position where someone might say, well, where she from? Happy to be here. And it's so great to
we still have that stigma. I'm not sure if you're connected with the Mental Health Association of Central Florida.
Yeah, my nonprofit is registered with them.
Okay, good, because they did reach out to me. I think it was last year though, and they were I think they noticed the divide. And there is a cultural divide, and there is a stigma. And I was telling them there's so many different areas that just even being immigrants, that comes up for us as a community that people won't even understand. So there's always, what do you think, Louis? Do you think there's still a stigma for mental health from Caribbean folks?
Yeah, of course, I think so. It is a big stigma. And my question to the doctors is that, do you find, who are most of your customers? Is it men or women? Because yes, we still don't want nobody to know that we're crazy.
I would say for me, probably mostly women. However, we've been getting a lot more men coming in, which has been great. And I'm very proud to say that I have a male counselor now. He's of Nigerian descent, so that also helps, significantly to have a black man on staff to help with our men.
For me,
What about young people? Are you seeing some of our young kids coming in?
Yes.
and I wanted to address this question about stigma because that's the name of the game. We want to end the stigma, right?
Right.
And I want to share that I've treated former astronauts, professional athletes, CEOs, executives, all folks who have been homeless, folks who are regular everyday people. And what I love about this work is the fact that mental illness does not discriminate. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter your disabilities or abilities. We are all human beings. And I think what we need to focus on are how, as humans, we have more similarities. So this stigma is really silly. And we are doing a disservice to ourselves by, continuing it. Like I said, it doesn't matter what background of people I have treated, youth, adults of all backgrounds, men and women, but we are all human beings and we all experience mental health conditions. So I want to implore the audience to know that that is the case and you should not have that stigma. You should seek help and do not suffer in silence. But to answer your question, predominantly seeing women, however, through different partnerships, we're now seeing a lot more men. So I'm really grateful for that.
Wonderful.
I am glad to hear that because we men, we are not telling our business like that. We don't.
I think it's slowly, it's getting better every year.
Yes,
I think it's
good.
getting,
It's good.
it is getting better. But and for the young to, middle-aged people, but I think the older people, they're probably very set in their ways that that's not a custom for them. So, and they will look at you like, you're mad? Like you're really
Yes.
So, we understand, but I think more and more people, younger people now are going to therapy, understanding, to get things out of them, to be healthy. So I applaud that. So, and thank you for these amazing women that, especially Black excellence, and we're going to keep saying that because that's what you are, Black excellence. To be in this profession. So the trauma, of Black people, the stress, the plight, in so many ways, they can feel comfortable with, individuals and professionals like yourself. So we're going to go ahead and start our question aspect. Louis, I don't know if you need to take a station ID.
Yes, of course. If you're just joining us, we want to welcome you this evening to Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network. We are live this evening on CRR-FM. We are live with the Caribbean Diaspora Vibez on Facebook. We want to welcome all of you this evening, those who are watching and those who are listening to this edition as we celebrate women and their achievement and their accomplishment in their world of field. So welcome everyone as we continue. Donna, I always want to ask this question, regardless. We talked about it last week, and it's the involvement, ladies, with the church, because anything that we're doing here, what we're talking about, men not getting involved, and you're not seeing a lot of us. I think it's all come down to education. Educating ourselves, or we getting more information about mental health, and how it is important for us to get checked up or something, just like a regular check. We should be doing that on our mental, because our mental area is one of the most important area of our life. We must be stable. We must have proper sense and know how to do things. And I think it go back to the church, that the church, are we seeing the church doing any form of talking in regards to this? You ladies, we all go to church. What is your thought on the matter? Are we totally lost because the church is not involved?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we're going into a whole new thing again if we're talking about the church, because we could ask, who is the church? And if we're focusing on young people, there is a thing that the young people say. There is no love like Christian hate. And I personally experienced that, which drove me away from the church. And I was extremely, nobody could be closer to the priest and the bishop than I was. And then you grow and then change from church to church, and you find that the church, if we're talking about the church, is where a lot of judgment leads. Personally, for myself, I stood up after speaking to a pastor or reverend of my church about certain things that he was preaching in terms of isolating certain members of the church and certain populations in the church over 3 years. On the fourth year, I couldn't deal with it again. I stood up after his sermon. I questioned, did I get that what you're saying correctly? And he said, yes. I said, okay, well, this is no place for me, girls. Let us go. And I walked out of the church, and I haven't been back since. And focused on my spirituality aspect as opposed to the church. Because yes, a lot of times people tell us, well, you don't go to church for people. But as Maslow tells us, or one of our basic things as human beings is a sense of belonging. And if you don't feel accepted and belonging, that can kill you. Totally kill you. So then I chose before I stopped, totally gave up on the church concept, I worked through 4 churches, different denominations, and the judgment there is real. In developing my own level of spirituality, I'm just talking for myself. That was when I was a young mother going through my divorce, and that is when you need the church. But that was when they were more judgmental, pushed you out now because now you're not in a married setting, so you're no longer living the life, But my basic thing is, if we believe in the Bible, Jesus himself was a prophet, said, I did not come for the perfect person, I came for the lost. And that is who we have to focus on. So in terms of the church, for me, I started focusing because a lot of our young people right now are driven away from the church because they find that it's very judgmental, and focusing on different levels of spirituality and how they can have a relationship with whoever that supreme being is for them. And for us to reach the young people, I worked as a social service coordinator in a halfway home not too long ago. And, I've seen a lot of the incarcerated people are repeat offenders and gotten in trouble from since they were 7 years old. And they do not want to accept that. I don't want to go to therapy. I'm a man. This is what they see. This is what they know. And it became real for me to understand from their point of view that us telling them that another world out there exists is not real for them until they experience it for themselves. And after sitting down talking to them and asking them if they want to go to therapy after, I had to rebrand it in a way outside of church and speak at their language in terms of spirituality, who it is for them, what have they experienced on their journey in terms of getting out there and getting back into society. and what is therapy for them in terms of their mental well-being. As opposed to what we just said, I found the older gentlemen, because well, then again, they were fed up of being in and out of church. They were, or of prison. They were just resigned. Okay, I'm tired of doing this. I want to change. But I had to rebrand therapy for them in making them understand. Okay, so what is it that we think we are doing here right now? Did I tell you what to do? Okay, so what was I doing? You were listening and probing me to understand things for myself. I tell them you just had a therapy session. So what is the issue? You know, do you appreciate what we just did here? Yes, Miss Robinson. Okay, that's exactly what you're gonna get. But if you do not probe why you are in this situation, then you cannot change the behavior. And so for me, I had to bring it down on the basis, come down to the language that they spoke. Because a lot of things, when people speak about church, it is up there. From the time you hear church, is
Shut down.
judgmental. So for
So like they
me,
need some therapy themselves.
Yeah.
well, that there again, we do not want to be judgmental because by telling them they need therapy because they have an issue with church, we have lost them. From the time you start being judgmental, for me, you lost me already. If you start telling me that this church is better, and because there is so much infighting when it comes to church, every church is the right church,
Right.
but we worship the same God, you know?
Mhm.
And for me, in terms of reaching out all the young people, I had to come down to talking spirituality. Where are you on your spiritual journey? Whatever that looks for you. And take off what my bias is and don't impress it on them. So I realized for me in reaching people, and even for other people to reach me, because I can I will just share on that last thing. On my way to work, I had a 3-hour journey commuting to work because I worked across state lines. And I normally listen to my praise and worship and did my worshiping while I left because I left home very, very early in the mornings. And one morning I entered to work and my music was still going on. And the guard, one of the monitors, because they had to search us, we cannot go in before our phones, we had to pass through this thing. And I was really glowing. And he saw my music and he says, "Oh, your face looks really good." His next question was, where do you worship? And I said, "Excuse me, what does that have to do with you? Am I not worshiping now? You saw the difference in me because I was worshiping. Does it make a difference where I worship or who God is for me, whether it's Jehovah, whether it's Yahweh, whether it's Allah, whatever it is? You saw the difference in me as I entered work this morning." And then he says, "We have to discuss." I said, "No, we have no discussion going on. I don't discuss religion. I don't discuss politics. Let us just leave it at that." So that is where we lose people. That is where we lose people a lot, especially
Right.
with the young. And we have to step back sometimes in asking the why. What is our purpose? For us to impose our thing on them or for us to reach them? So
Yes,
thank
yes.
you.
Anyone
I know
else
I spoke
wants
a lot.
to
Thank you.
jump in on that church question? And then our next question will be just giving tips for individuals with this climate that we have. So anyone else wants to comment on
Yes,
who
I'd
is
I'd love I'd love to say a few thoughts. And thank you, Kathe. I grew up in church, from a little girl, and I'm still a church girl. But to Kathe's point, I think there comes a time where, as you mature, as you have life experiences, your focus on church per se is not as strong as your spirituality or your own personal relationship with God. Now, that being said, sometimes people call and they're like, "I'm looking for a Christian counselor." So you don't I mean, Christian counseling is a separate discipline than mental health, but there's similarities, but it's different. But instead of getting into all that, I tell people that I'm not a Christian counselor because I'm not, but I'm a counselor who is a Christian. There's a difference for me in that. I don't lead with that. If people want to discuss, and I've had people come in where, similar to what Kathe was saying, they have experienced very traumatic things in church settings, and they want to work through that, or they feel like, because they're questioning themselves or their own spiritual journey or walk, does that make me less of a Christian or less of a Muslim or whatever it is, but excuse me. So I help them work through those things. But something else that I do is I go to churches and tell, and the whole overarching message is you can have Jesus and a counselor or Jesus and a therapist. It's not one or the other. Because again, going back to stigma, we hear these things where people will say things like, well, you just need to pray more or fast more or take it to God in prayer. Yes, we can do all of those things, but we can still go to see someone. Just like if we have a medical diagnosis, we're going to do all of those things. We're going to worship, we're going to fast, we're going to pray, all of these things, but we still go and we get treatment. It's the same thing. So we need to get away from separating mental health concerns or emotional concerns from the physical concerns and the spiritual concerns, because like I said earlier, they're all connected, and so if pastors or church leaders invite me to their church or their conferences to talk about how you can blend the two worlds, that is my jam. I love to do that because, and I'm not trying to sell anybody anything or impose my values, but I will say Kathe said a lot of things that were very important, and I don't want to take up too much more of the time, but I will say when the Pulse shooting or massacre happened here in Orlando, it was a very devastating thing for everybody in one way, shape, or form, whether you were directly impacted or not. But for me, I will never forget that morning when I woke up and I saw my phone was going off and what is happening and multiple calls and text messages, the news, and I was like, oh my God, I'll never forget. It was a Sunday morning. And my boss's boss called me, at the time, and she said, Letitia, we need you. We're looking for all the licensed counselors in the city and all of this. And she said, what time can you get here? I said, I need about 3 hours because I had to go to church first to get my strength up to walk into that because it was so traumatic. And so I went to church and then, was able to help. But over the next couple of days, one of the things that my privilege as a Christian person, because if you're a Christian, you're privileged, right? For in many ways, but Christianity is I would say the most recognized religion probably around the world, or the less stigmatized in some way, shape, or form, depending on who you're talking to. But I was not happy with and I'm not bashing Christianity because I am, but I'm just saying I wasn't happy with some of the things that I heard from survivors and their loved ones, including people that said that they were there and they wanted to go to church after surviving that, but felt like they would be judged. And that really rubbed me the wrong way because we're supposed to be loving and welcoming, regardless of what our beliefs are, regardless of how we feel about what a person does or doesn't do. It is not our duty, and I feel we should not create this environment where people feel like if they've gone through something, whatever it is, it could be overcoming a drug addiction, whatever it is, that they would feel like I want to go to church to get some solace or some healing, but I'm afraid that I'll be judged, and that's just not a good thing, and it can turn people away. But we just do what we can and let people know that we're here to love them and support them through whatever it is that they're coming in to talk about. Again, mental health or going to see a counselor is not another thing. It's not the same as pastoral counseling. They're both good, for in their own respective places, but sometimes we have to understand where pastoral counseling ends and where you need to go and see a mental health professional, because a lot of times people don't know the difference, and they'll say, well, we went to the pastor, or, oh no, I don't need to see a counselor, I'll go talk to my pastor. Go ahead and do that, but it's up to the pastors too, unless they're trained in both disciplines, because you have some that knows when to refer out. And that's one of the things I love about my pastors and other pastors. They have no problem saying, okay, this is beyond the scope of my practice. Let me refer you, or let me recommend that you go and see a mental health counselor. So, and also, I think part of the stigma as it pertains to church and just mental health in general goes all the way back to slavery, where people didn't have anything else but the church. That's all they had. And so unfortunately, that turned into generations passing down of, if you have a problem, you go to the church and the church only, not that this is the only avenue that we had, so this is what we did. But the message, just like if you, I'm sure we've all participated in those activities where someone says a message and by the time it gets around the room, it's a completely different message. the messaging changes. And so it is our duty to help to destigmatize and educate so that people understand and feel more comfortable and safe going to seek counseling when needed. And it doesn't mean that you're quote unquote crazy. It could just mean that you're grieving, you're going through menopause, whatever, a job, whatever it is, a million things, just to talk to someone. And you can talk to your girlfriend or your homeboy or whatever, but it is really nice to have someone who is objective and who is trained to help you navigate those things sometimes. So I'll be quiet because I'll go on about it.
Good points.
Let's hear from Francisca and then Dr. Topaz about what would be your tips for this climate right now, this high stress climate.
Thank you. I think for me, I've thought about this a lot, and I think of all the things that we recommend that people do to look after mental health. And I keep thinking, well, if I had to think about what's happening around the world, it's such an anxiety-provoking time. What would be the one thing that could kind of really have a great impact? And I keep coming back to connection, to social networks, to being with people, to actually having relationships. And I feel like relationships can cultivate a lot of positivity and it can kind of intensify emotion and magnify that. So in that context, I feel we can enjoy a lot of the things that help to make us feel good and bring joy into our lives. And for me, I like to think of it in the context of interaction and, relating to other people. Because I see a lot of people. I see people one-on-one all the time. And, they do good work. We make progress, but it can also be a bit isolating, I think. And I feel like we need to get back in touch with real people, outside of social media. I have a client today and she said to me, she scrolls up, we checked her phone actually. She scrolls up to 3 hours a day.
Oh my God.
A day, and, just trying to get under that. And really, when you uncover that and all the other activities, addictions and things people have, they're not connecting with real people. And I would really want to maybe come back to that a little bit, bring back the joy and laughter which can come in relationships. And I know I do understand, I hear it every day. I think that sometimes relationships can feel really difficult for people. And of course, I'm not only talking about romantic relationships, but friendships and even collegial relationships. And there are other ways of accessing that, or even being in situations where there is relating happening, because some people will stay home because they don't want to do anything at all. And I just want to encourage people, I think, to reach out, to connect, to begin with making that change within themselves. Sometimes we wait for something to happen for us to feel like it's okay to do it, but maybe starting with ourselves can actually help us to have those better connections with people in our lives. So I think that would be definitely one of the big ones for me.
Thank you. And I think since COVID came, we got disconnected even more. It just went, we have just, online relationships. People are seeing each other. They're just seeing people on social media, but we're not hearing the voices. You don't know if someone's going through anything because you're just seeing their posts and they look fine on social media or texting. So we're not getting out, like you said, and mingling and hugging and a lot of friendships. A lot of my friends that I haven't seen is people after COVID just stayed away and they got used to being away, and then so now that's like the normal online friendship. But it's really not healthy because sometimes, so we are putting a focus, being intentional, getting out, and just whether it's as we get older, we don't want to do late night stuff, so even if it's 5-6 o'clock, doing something, lunches, things like that. But yeah, it's important for people to get out. Dr. Topaz?
Yes, I think everything that everyone has shared has been excellent. I do want to make it clear as we think about tips, but first recognize that mental illnesses are medical illnesses. They are not character flaws. I want to repeat that again for further emphasis. Mental illnesses are medical illnesses and not character flaws. Things you might hear people say are, oh, she own way, she rude, she disrespectful. Maybe she's having a panic attack. Maybe suffering from PTSD. Maybe she has borderline personality disorder or another medical diagnosis. And so I think that again speaks to the stigma because we are thinking that these are people's character flaws, but no, they are just experiencing like a physical illness, another type of medical illness. So that's the context I want us all to think about mental health. And when I think about tips to get through stressful times or any times, I really focus on people doing the basics well. And what I mean by that are you sleeping 6 to 8 hours, at least 6 to 8 hours a night? Are you eating a balanced diet? Are you exercising? Are you getting up and moving? I think one of the things I really want to impress upon this community, and something we know, is that many of us back home, you're moving, you getting up, you're sweeping your yard, you are doing a lot of physical activity. But now we're here, you know, in the US or wherever, and we're sitting down, we're sedentary. We want to get back to those ways that our mothers and grandmothers taught us. That is what makes us healthy. So before I talk to people about other treatments, medications, I want to make sure, are you doing the basics? And when it comes to sleep, it's not just, you know, little children that need a routine. Big people need a routine too. It is important that you have a good sleep hygiene, that you have a bedtime. When I ask people, like adults I work with, they're like, I just go to bed. No, you know, there is a routine that you want to do to let your body know we are going to sleep now. We're going to quiet our minds. We're going to get ready to rest, not just for babies, also for big people. I can go on and on, but I want to at least make sure I get those tips in.
Thank you. Did you have any, you didn't have any thoughts on the church aspect?
I do. You know, my colleagues have shared so much. I think that what church is a community of like-minded people that support you. And so that may look different for everybody. I have collaborated with churches like others have mentioned because I think that is amongst the Caribbean community a, you know, a major place of support for some people. And so if we can collaborate with churches, especially for folks who are very scared of mental health, that would be a great way to let clergy and mental health professionals work together to bring more people in.
Awesome. Dr. Arlene, did you have any comments? You are muted.
I'm grateful for our talk this evening, and having been in mental health for many years, a little bit of forensic psychiatry as well, and working with students and bereaved families. I agree with Dr. Topaz. The basics is very important before we start putting on hardcore drugs on people, because sometimes the basics is important for bringing them into balance. Thank you, Francisca. After COVID, during COVID, this interaction, communication, relationships, right, Donna? Those have been, a lot of it has been severed. And this is contributing to a lot of loneliness, depression, and self-care deficits and all of that. So if these can be communicated to our people, you know,
Yes.
we would be much more healthier and will help in these stressful times that we're living in.
Thank you. And you know, I didn't realize it. I was hearing also about mental health for issues with menopause.
Yeah.
What? Touch on that real quick as we have 4 more minutes.
Who's gonna do it?
Who wants to jump in?
Dr. Topaz.
Yes, I can jump in. I have,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Happy to share the floor, but I will quickly state that as women, predominantly, this is where I see a lot of women who are coming into mental health care through the before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and the postpartum period, and even menopausal period, because our hormones have great influxes and changes. This impacts our mental health. This is not myth. This is true. And so it's very important for women to seek out reproductive psychiatrists who specialize in treating any women's issues related to the hormones with pregnancy and menopause.
Thank you.
I also add something too. Is in addition to postpartum depression and menopause, normal period issues, because a couple years ago I was diagnosed with PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I couldn't understand why I was all over the place. One minute I'm crying, one minute I'm euphoric, another one I'm down and all over the place. And I really, really thought something was wrong with me. Well, of course, something was wrong with me at PMDD, and I have to be put on meds to balance it off. So as women, we have to be also mindful. And earlier, as one of the doctors said, I appreciate you said that in terms of it's not about characteristic flaws, but it's serious mental issues. Because just for PMDD, I was off the charts. Always figure something is wrong with me, and I was attacking everybody, especially, these close people among us. And then I had their comorbidities. So with PMDD comes another diagnosis of bipolar 2. And I had to manage the two of them, in terms of how do I go forward? How do I manage my treatment? And all that brought me into this space of going into mindfulness and meditation and being calm and being able to manage myself, because I had children to take care of and manage, and relationships, because those things destroy the relationships. So as women, all my life I heard, oh, check your tone, you have an attitude, you have this. And those things now makes you feel inferior and less of a person. I am not worthy, I am not this, until we had to decide, you have to decide for yourself, I'm going to see somebody. And after Hurricane Maria, sometimes, those natural disasters really put us down. And I had to assess myself, because after losing so much things after Hurricane Maria, it got worse. And then I had to now go see a psychiatrist, and thankfully I have a very supportive sister who was a doctor herself, who identified the issues in me to tell me, okay, we're going to see a therapist, and that was one of the best decisions. And having a very supportive network is so, so critical to people with diagnosed with mental illnesses. Just as parents, we have to stop telling our children, I wish you could be like this person, or compare them with the other children, because there are serious mental illnesses that could be happening that we determine are character flaws, as the doctor said. So there is a whole new behavioral rebranding that we have to do in pulling our children on board, in terms of going to see therapists and having them work through their issues.
Thank you. Thank you. Lois, I know you've got to jump off.
Yes, and so I want to just close out going back to the church, because the church used to play such a vital role in our life as a community. The church used to be our bank, our school, our counselor, and everything. That's where we came from. And so I think because of so many different complacencies, so many different issues that the church and the ministry who is in charge are going through right now, we don't have that anymore. And so I would, if anyone in the corridor listening, I would encourage us, let's find a way to go back. When you go to church, you don't see the men. There are no men in church anymore. We have lost the men in church. And when you lost the men in church, you lost them at home. And so home is very important, because that's where we used to have Sunday dinner. All of us sit down, and if somebody go mental, you would know. you would at least have some idea that there's something right with this child or something, and then things are taken up from there. So I would love to, at least throw that back in there. I thank you, ladies, for your great contribution that you have made. Again, I want to leave a chapter. I want to leave a chapter for you. Jeremiah 31, verse 22. Jeremiah 31, verse 22. There's a new thing on this earth. Woman has compassed man. Have a great evening.
Yes, that's that Black excellence we're talking about. We're just
Yes.
amazing. You know, Lois, we are womb. We
Yeah.
bring the unseen into the seen realm. So we are just amazing on a natural. One day we'll just have to have a show just on how amazing the woman is, because I think it's definitely underscored. So that'll be another topic. And I think what Lois is trying to say, and I think Dr. Letitia touched on it, is having joint relationships with churches in the community to show that bridge of support that, it's okay to go to church and still also seek mental health counseling. Thank you, everyone. Let's just have a 30-second tip to the world. I think all across the world right now, it's just high stress climate. People are losing jobs, homes. There's a lot of disasters, etc. If you could just give one tip, 30-second to the world, not even just the US. We'll start with Dr. Topaz.
My tip would be to think that therapy is not just for badness or when you're having problems, but to use therapy to cultivate wellness. What you're doing well, say your life is successful and you want to keep it that way, go to therapy to help cultivate that wellness. So therapy does not have to be for badness. It can be to cultivate wellness. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Francisca?
I would definitely say, create those special spaces, cultivate spaces where you can be, where you can look after yourself. Because in a world where so much is going on, there's so much stress and stuff, how are you being intentional about creating the time when you can be rest and make that okay in your minds as well. Give yourself permission, engender the kind of self-compassion that enables you to be for a while, because I think that gives us strength.
Thank you. Kathe?
I will go back to what we mentioned about connection and relationships, because also not it was emphasized here in my program yesterday that also came up with the young people, the connection and the point with regards to COVID as well, where we lost that connection, reaching out, getting away a little bit from our comfort zones and reaching out and reconnecting again.
Yes, so important. That's a big, big, big piece. So important, all the balance. Dr. Letitia?
I just want to add the importance of self-care. My mantra and my challenge for people is to practice self-care daily. Self-care doesn't have to be this big thing where you go and have a spa day. Of course it can, or you go on a trip, you can, and you should. But in the meantime, think of the things, get creative and do the things that are within your means to practice self-care daily to recharge yourself, even if it's just taking a few breaths, saying a prayer, listening to a favorite song, having a favorite snack, just something that nourishes you and replenishes you every day can really be helpful for your mental health.
Yeah. Dr. Arlene?
I too echo. I wrote down my thoughts. Practice self-care. It is important. Cultivate mindfulness and foster connection. Importance of connectivity.
You see how there's a bridge? It's not necessarily one thing, it's a bridge. It's like a puzzle that you put together. My tip as we head out is, again, with self-love. I call something, I do a lot of mantras daily, and I call it take time for yourself and give yourself little vitamin G, like little shots, little bursts of vitamin G. And that's just little 2 minutes here, 2 minutes definitely when you wake up, in the shower, on the way to work, lunchtime, just like we take coffee breaks or some people take smoking breaks. Throughout the day, give yourself a little vitamin G, and you just incorporate gratitude, be thankful, be intentional, focus back, because we can get carried away on all the stress and the bills and all that we're seeing in the news, etc. And just think and repeat mantras, whatever that mantra is for you that soothes your heart. I love to say, like, I'm open and available to God's health, wealth, and happiness. I'm open and available to live in my blessed life. You repeat whatever that is for you silently, just say throughout the day, and that's going to saturate your mind and saturate your heart. So I don't go to church regularly. I visit church, but I have church throughout the day. Not even once, throughout the day. I'm by doing those little vitamin G shots. And with that, we want to thank you all for an amazing show. We hope that you found comfort in some area and some tips from these amazing women representing Black excellence tonight. We thank you all. God bless us all. And until next time, good night.
Good night. Thank you, our house
Thank
lady.
you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Hi, Donna.
Good
Bye.
night.